Suprabhatam, Namaste, corporate seekers. And this is the first of the series of podcasts. And happy that this is going to be on Japa today. And as we start this journey of seeking in life, we have articulated our seeking in three categories. It is the core seeking that we do in the form of healthy body, calm mind, happy family, and prosperous Bharata. And the external seeking elements as seeking the freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of people connections, and freedom of pursuing our purposes. And the elements of inner seeking as seeking the uh, detachment of freedom from these sense attachments and seeking the uh, detachment or the freedom from the process of seeking itself and seeking the freedom from our sense of identification with this body and mind, and of course seeking the ultimate goal of moksha or nirvana. So with this purposes articulated, sounds like quite a bit, and I'm sure Sindhoora will tell the process ends actually when we stop seeking itself. So with that premise, it's wonderful to have Sindhoora today to lead us into the realm of Japa, chanting. A brief introduction about Sindhoora. Born in Mysore, after schooling she studied engineering, stepped into the role of HR, then transitioned to becoming a teacher in the Montessori school, and yoga started calling her and became a yoga student, evolved into a yoga teacher, and Himalayas started calling her, explored the journey in the Himalayan region. And now she is a joint secretary in the Indian Yoga Association, spreading the value of yoga in India and around the world. And she is an expert teacher in the area of chanting. So when I came across a session conducted by Indian Yoga Association, which I attended, I felt like learning chanting from her. So I requested her to teach me how to chant. So she suggested, okay, why don't we meet up in Mysore, where I live and where she lives as well, to learn in person. So I thought, why limit this benefit to only myself? So I thought maybe more of us can benefit from her chanting expertise. So thought of doing this initial interactive session so that at the end of it, some of us, if we feel like taking this journey forward in terms of learning chanting in a very systematic, methodical manner, we could take that journey as well. So with that, Sindhoora, over to you. We'll keep it free flowing. Maybe you can start. And I have muted all the participants. If you have any questions, please post in the chat, and we'll have a slightly elaborate Q&A towards the end of it. So expect this session to go for about 60 to 70 minutes, including Q&A. Over to you, Sindhoora. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Namaste. We will start with the prayer as we do in our tradition.
I just request everyone to please switch on video. I know, it's early morning for most of us from the Indian region. It's fine. Your makeup and the readiness for the video doesn't matter. Please switch on your video so that there is better engagement. Thank you.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be great if I can actually see you all. Otherwise, I'll just be seeing Manjunath ji and few others who have turned their cameras on. As you are and in whatever environment you are, feel free to keep the cameras on and stay on mute. We will so I can see you. I can see if whatever I'm saying you're able to absorb, and by reading that face, I can probably explain better. Therefore, we will start with the invocation. Namaskara Mudra. Those who know these prayers can chant. Otherwise, you can just listen to these. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् महागणपतये नमः। प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामभित्र्यवतु आनो दिवो बृहतः पर्वतादा सरस्वती यजतागन्तु यज्ञम् हवन् देवी जुजुषाणा घृताजीषग्मान्नो वाचमुषति शृणोतु वाग्देव्यै नमः। चरणं पवित्रं विततं पुराणं येन पूतस्तरति दुष्कृतानि तेन पवित्रेण शुद्धेन पूताः अतिपाप्मानमरातिन्तरेमा। श्रीसद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। Namaste. In our tradition, it is important that we invoke the grace of Ganapati, Vinayaka, known in different names, so that whatever we are starting will be obstacle free. And considering this is the first podcast and also on chanting, it is absolutely imperative that we seek his blessings first. And since this is about chanting, we definitely need the blessings of Vak-Devi. So we seek blessings of Ma Saraswati in the form of Vak-Devi. Vak means speech, the Adipati or the Lordess or Goddess of speech. And in our tradition, we also chant the last mantra that we chanted is for Guru. And without a Guru, how is it possible that this knowledge even is passed down for centuries, for a millennia perhaps? So by offering my pranams to my Guru and the entire lineage of Gurus who have made this knowledge available to us, we begin this session. This session is about not just Japa, about chanting as well, because Japa is a form of chanting, and in order to understand that, we have to know what is that role chanting plays in everyday life. When we say chanting, people have different ideas, and it is important to know that every culture has some kind of chanting. Maybe for them it is singing, or just reading the holy book, their holy scripture, or simply sitting and praying, repeated prayers, continuous repetition of the same prayer. All of them fall under the understanding and category of chanting. But let's see what it means in our Indic culture. Chanting, we simply call it as pathanam. Pathanam would also mean reading, but we call chanting as pathanam, but not bhajanam or gayanam. Bhajanam and gayanam fall under pretty much the same category, that means singing, praise to the Lord. But this is a very specific way of recitation without using the musical notes. Mainly, we say this because our Veda, I'm sure all of you know a few Veda mantras, and some of you may have actually taken up Vedic studies either in your childhood or even now, pursuing even now. We know these very famous suktas, Purusha Sukta or Durga Sukta, and Rudram, Namakam and Chamakam, Rudra Prashna. So all of these have a certain notes that either come down, even as simple as a Shanti mantra. When we say Sahana Vavatu, Sahana, so you see there is some kind of a tonality there, but it is not singing, correct? Because it has something called as Vedic Swaras, yeah, Veda Swaras. We will go into the details of it as we go through the slides as well. So by just maintaining the Veda Swaras, we chant the entire thing. Therefore, we call it as Pathanam. Now, having said that, does it mean we can only chant the Veda and no other text? Yes and no, and we will come to that in the upcoming slides. Yes. So, chanting, we call it as Pathanam. It is definitely expression of one's devotion to the deity of choice, or simply by uttering the mantras from the Veda. And it is a spiritual practice. I mention that because a lot of the understanding is that I am spiritual, but I am not ritualistic. What does it mean when one says that? I'm sure many of you have felt it or heard somebody say, right? It is because we directly connect ritual to chanting a few mantras. Somebody is doing all mana 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 and ringing the bell and lighting the lamp, and we think that we are not ritualistic in nature, but I rather sit and meditate, I rather sit and do japa. But even the aspect of ritual, all of that comes under prayer. Now, when we say prayer, in our Guru Parampara, our Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji has talked about prayer being in threefold. One is the use of our angas and having a ritual, which is Kaika Karma. Then there is Vachika Karma, under which category chanting, singing, bhajans, all of that fall. And then there is Manasa Karma. Manasa Karma is where Japa and all of those things fall. But all of these are a form of expression of one's devotion towards the deity of choice. So, what we are trying to say is not that I am ritualistic or I'm spiritual, because our entire tradition is to spiritualize oneself, isn't it? All the practice is to spiritualize. Maybe somebody does not have time to sit and meditate, but by bringing that focus towards that little idol or a picture that you have in the room, by lighting a lamp, by uttering a few prayers, you are focused on just one point for that period of time. And even that extended will become our longer fire rituals of yajnas and the yagas. So all of that come under the same categories, what I would like to share. Now, like we just discussed, what is it that we chant? So the category on the left side, all the Vaidika mantras, including the Shanti mantras, and if you are a student of Vedanta or Advaita Vedanta, you might be studying certain Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishad or Brihadaranyaka and so on and so forth, Amrita Bindu Upanishad, all of them fall under that category of Veda chanting, even the Suktam. That means these can never be sung. That much we can make clear right off, right now. Yeah, anything that is related to Veda cannot be sung. We call it as chanting or recitation, simply pathanam. If you have heard people singing the Gayatri mantra with beautiful tone and beautiful voice as well, just know that yes, maybe it's their way of expressing that mantra, but it should ideally not be sung because it already has the Vedic notes, right? So just we read the musical notes, there are Vedic notes, and since the notes already exist, there is no scope for us to add extra musical notes to it, all right? But on the other hand, the category on the right side that you see, Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutra, Saundarya Lahari, Sahasranamas, we all are aware of these texts. The source for these are either coming from the Purana, either they are Aitihasika. Saundarya Lahari is a composition by Adi Shankara. Similarly, there are so many amazing acharyas who have written different stotras. And all of these can be chanted, can be sung. Both of them are allowed for this category. Now, we know that since, what is the difference then, right? Main difference, like I said, one for one, we call it as the Veda, that all the mantras and suktas come from. These are the common terminologies that we come across when we see a text related to singing and chanting. We use the word mantra, we use the word stotra, stuti, shloka, sutra, shatkam. So it is a little confusing sometimes what it actually means. Let's try to put all of that under certain categories so we understand it better. Now, normally, mantra is either simply a short sound or a short word or a phrase. It can also go on for pages, right? That is a mantra. Anything that is related to the Veda is a mantra. They are the hymns that come from the Veda. And it is imperative that we receive it from a guru who is trained in a certain tradition. Because I say in a certain tradition, whatever tradition it is important it comes from a tradition because of the rules that exist in the chanting. The nuances of it only will be kind of preserved in the Guru Parampara. Therefore, it is important to learn from a teacher. Does it mean that there are a lot of uploaded videos by that very good teacher on YouTube we can learn. No, it's not possible, because there is the technique to learning, technique to teaching. So we will have to practice in that technique, and the guru will know how to break the word perfectly as per grammar, as per, without changing the meaning. Therefore, it is absolutely important to learn from a teacher, a live teacher, right? And normally, this entire tradition of Veda learning has been in Karna Parampara. It was taught just orally. The teacher would recite something, a shorter mantra once, and the students would recite it 2 times or 3 times. And it was committed to memory. My guru always would say, initially it was mastaka to mastaka. Mastaka means, from the brain or mind to mind. But now it has become pustaka to pustaka. So we just read from the book and we write it in a book and we leave it there. Nothing is being committed to memory. That's why the entire tradition has been in Karna Parampara, and even now in the Gurukulas it is taught that way. And it is definitely used as a tool to control the mind. That is the mantra, because the definition of the mantra is mananat trayate iti mantraha. That which doesn't allow the mind to simply stray away, keeps it in one place. That is mantra, to simply translate it in English. Okay. So what is the difference between mantras and stotras or stuti? There's a lot of confusion among those who chant between these words. Stotra, stuti are synonyms. We'll just simply put it that way, right? And what is shloka? Shloka means a verse. For example, Bhagavad Gita is made up of shorter verses. How many verses are in the Gita? 700. Yes. So there are 700 verses, split between in 18 chapters, but the entire compilation, right? That makes the Gita. Sahasranama Stotra. So there are 108 verses along with the Dhyana Shloka and everything put together, more. So these are shlokas. What we hear, Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnu, it is one shloka, one verse. And when you compile these verses and put it together as a I wonder if I can call it a poem. Poems are probably shorter, but that we call as stotra. And the synonym to that is stuti. We have Ganga Stotram, and we have Guru Stotram. So many compositions. We have Ganesha Stotram. There are these stotras which are written in praise of a deity or a guru and all that. And sometimes these stotras also carry these names as Panchakam, Nirvana Shatkam, you may all have heard of that, right? Ashtakams and Dashakams. That means it's basically saying the number. Pancha, we know Pancha means 5. So Panchakam means that which consists of 5 verses. And Shatkam, that which consists of 6 verses, 8 and so on and so forth. When we say Sahasranama, there are like 1,000 names of the deity in that stotram. Therefore, it is Vishnu Sahasranama or Lalita Sahasranama Stotram. If you actually see the entire thing, we only see Sahasranama. It is Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram. So that's the main difference. Now, understanding the rules of chanting. Where do these rules come from? Normally, these rules, we kind of try to understand it in perspective of a tradition, because India is, right now the political borders of India is something, but what Bharata was before is something else, right? The geographical part, which was so vast, it was impossible to have the same practice everywhere. So perhaps maybe the gurus in different places of the country had these traditions wherever, because Veda is a Paurusheya, correct? We know that. It was not really written or composed by one person, but rishis saw that they were mantra drashtas, and they heard these in states of absorption or superconsciousness, is what is believed. Now, these rules that come from, you see these texts on the right, it is simply categorized into Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, but we know that Veda is one composite. It was categorized into these divisions by Veda Vyasa. Now, each of these texts now has been kind of perpetuated in traditions. Because, like I said, it is impossible to have just one rule book for everybody, and each of them have something called as pratishakhas. All right. Now, there is a rule coming from the tradition. There are a set of rules coming from the language Samskrita itself, and that rule varies from region to region. These three aspects we must remember, because there are sampradayas. The same mantra is chanted slightly differently, right? For example, we can understand this pratishakha and the tradition of chanting with respect to the language and grammar. English is a language and it has a grammar, right? Rules of grammar. Similarly, Kannada is a language, Hindi is a language. They have their own set of rules and grammar. Like that, for every Veda, for Rig Veda, there is something called as the Pratishakha, which consists of the rules of recitation. Similarly, applied to Yajurveda and the rest of them. And there are a set of rules that come from the language Sanskritam itself. And Sanskritam, as we go into the details of Sanskrit, I will explain this. There is something called as Vaidika Samskrita and Samanya Samskrita. What we normally right now use is Samanya Samskrita. Vaidika Samskrita has more complexities, more nuances to pronunciation, and perhaps even different sounds. Okay, so therefore it is important to study in a tradition so that we understand what is applied to that very text or mantra. Now, I say region because what we are going to study in this tradition, we call it as the Mysuru Sampradaya, because Mysore province, when it was province but not just a city in Karnataka, also was slightly more vaster than the borders of Karnataka, right? It went beyond the borders of the current Karnataka state. And Sringeri Matha, that is there. It is also called as Sringeri tradition, also known as the Mysore tradition, Mysore Sampradaya. There is a very specific set of rules that are followed in this parampara, and that is the tradition in which I study. So I can only talk about that parampara. Why I say that? Because slightly going towards Tamil Nadu, there is Kanchi Matha, and they have different set of rules. So it is imperative that we study in one tradition for an extended period of time, and perhaps the Acharya, our Guru, will give us a purview into what different traditions are. Therefore, only then we will understand the difference between error and tradition. Because if somebody says that, this is how we chant in our tradition, it should still follow the Pratishakha, right? The rules must still be followed. It should not lead to error, right? So mantras cannot be chanted wrongly because it will invoke different things. For example, sometimes this is as simple as pronunciation error, right? Instead of saying phala, we don't have fa in Sanskrit. Okay, that is an influence of Hindi. In Hindi, fa exists, but there is something as a rule, fakara comes, but the f sound comes like a F sound, but pa is what we use, pa. And we normally say phalam. If we do not enunciate that pa, mahaprana, and simply say palam, it will mean something different. Instead of saying, I am offering palam, fruits to the deity, if you say palam, I'm offering meat to the deity. The smallest of things will completely change the meaning. Now, this other set of rules that come, this forms the most basic of rules, and every student of chanting should perfect these. In Shikshavali, Taittiriya Upanishad, we follow the Taittiriya Pratishakha in Mysore tradition. These are the first set of rules. It goes like this. Shiksham vya akhyasya varnasvaraha matra balam samasantanam. It goes like that. So it talks about this varna, svara, matra, balam, sama, santanaha. All right. So varna means the pronunciation of the letters. Varna means letter. Okay. Varna can also mean color, but here it means letter and the correct pronunciation of that letter. For example, there's always this discussion of pa. Is it pa or is it pa fa? So these things exist in the tradition and we will have to follow the tradition. And swara, the intonations, like you probably heard, it's not simply just going straight or flat, it's kind of moving up and down. It feels like that, it's got some kind of a swara to it. So that is the intonation we are talking about, and it is only the Vedic intonation. What is the difference between the swara of Veda and swara of the music? We have 7 notes in music, isn't it? I'm not a trained musician, but we all know that there is sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, right? And then it goes to the next scale and it continues in a higher scale or a lower scale, right? Similarly, in Veda, there are only 3. We don't go beyond the 3 notes. And they are also to be very specifically used in a way that is taught by the teacher when we start studying the Veda. That is the swara they are talking about here. Matra. Matra is the unit of time that is used to pronounce a sound, yeah, a letter. Now, let's take an example of dharana. You know these words, yoga, right? Have you ever heard anybody say yoga? Even in English, it's Y-O-G-A, right? We all say yoga because O, the letter O in the word yoga, always carries 2 matra kala. It can never be O. But while probably calling out the sounds, we may say A, O, right? But we don't have a O. We have a O. That's why it's not a yoga, it's yo, yo. And ga is 1 matra, right? So pranayama. Yeah, that is the correct matra kala pronunciation. It's not pranayam. That would means prana is 1 matra. Pranayam, if you say that, right? It is prana because the word is prana there. Pranasya ayama is pranayama, right? So pranayama, it's 2 matra. So such utterance, like correct pronunciation, that emphasis is given in chanting. How much to elongate the sound, where it should be short, where it should be long. That is the matra understanding of that, duration to utter that sound. Balam, emphasis. How do you understand this? For example, I said this, I'm sure you all know the prayer Bhadram Karne, right? I have also heard a lot of people saying Bhadram Karne. Yeah, there is no emphasis there. It is Mahaprana Bha, Bhadram, Bhadram Karne Bhishrunuyama Devaha, right? Or even when we say Pranayama, Bhastrika, Bhastrika, correct? It's not Bastrika. Kapala Bhati, not Kapala Bhati, right? These kind of balam. This is the force that is applied on the articulation of that particular sound. That is paid a lot of attention to. Sama, continuity and evenness of tone is sama. For example, let's say somebody knows how to chant Veda using the notations. For example, Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai. This is evenness, not going up and down too much. But let's apply the notes, the swaras of Veda, and let's put our own little twist to it. Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu. You see? There's like in between notes that are heard, right? We may be trying to do those swaras correctly, but there is like a trill in between. There is like a alap in between. That is not allowed in Veda. Yeah, it needs to be even toned, and it always should follow that opening sound. That is, if we keep our standard tone as Om Saha Om Ha, should fall into the same line again. Yeah, it should not go somewhere else. Yeah, that evenness of tone is called as sama, that must be maintained in chanting. Now, santana is the conjunction rules. For example, shuklam baradharam vishnum. We normally say shuklam, shuklam. It's not enunciated enough. Yeah, conjunction is when there is a sanyuktakshara or when there is a sandhi somewhere, or also sometimes there are some places where we pause and then continue. All these rules also must be followed. We will be chanting towards the end of this, so I'm not going to give examples for all of them. Let's go ahead. Now, We understand that the rules of chanting come from many different aspects, either the region, the language, Samskrita itself, and also from the parampara, the tradition. And we know there are very basic set of rules that are applied. Now, to understand what role chanting actually plays in our lives. Like I said, it may be a ritualistic chanting, it may be, or just a japa way of chanting. It definitely has some effect on our mind. Correct? So we know even when we just chant the first Omkara when we sit down for our yoga practice or pranayama or dhyana, that first Om itself has a wonderful effect on our mind. It immediately calms our mind. And we know, especially this active chanting, what I'm talking about, initially it is very demanding. It requires 100% focus, attention, and concentration. So it helps in developing that concentration. As we go through the slides, you will see even there are researchers now how it helps in sustaining that attention and how it builds memory power. Now, we see that as we pay attention to these nuances of Alpa Prana, Mahaprana pronunciation, the articulation also definitely improves. And if we are chanting for an extended period of time, it becomes like an indirect practice of pranayama, breath practice, especially. You know how much breath you need in order to complete that sentence. You know how to control your breath. And most importantly, we start with the correct asana. If we are sitting slouched or leaning against the, support for the back, it is not possible to chant. So it is imperative that we sit upright and then the breath is controlled and then the focus. So we are using all the aspects of our asana abhyasa into this. And since it sustains our attention for a long period of time, it becomes a type of dharana, which helps in preparing the mind for dhyana. And definitely it is a tool for preserving our culture. Now, this is what I was mentioning, research-based. There are a lot of researches available. If you're interested, you can note down these key words and just put it on Google Scholar, and you will get several research papers on this, on visual sustained attention, how it helps in that, and verbal working memory. And now it's actually being used as intervention to increase the attention span in those with ADHD, and also to improve speech, memory recall, all of these cognitive impairments. There are also currently quite a few researchers that are working on, as a part of the intervention, chanting is used as a measure to control the early onset of dementia as well. So you can take a look at those researches later. Now, how to use this chanting in our daily life? First aspect, since Manjunath ji mentioned of personal sadhana and how to control the mind through japa, so we will first need to understand chanting. Therefore, I started off what pathanam means so that we can then apply it to different aspects of our daily life. Normally, when we say personal sadhana, it is japa, all right? And japa is of different layers. We will be discussing that at a later point. And if we have this, also talked about ritualistically using a few prayers, what does it mean? If we have a habit of lighting a lamp, lighting agarbatti or dhoop every day at home, you can utter a few prayers. It could be, I'm sure most of our Indian households have a few pictures of the deities or idols of the deities. We can chant those prayers. And that becomes the puja part, how we incorporate the chants that we do in the puja part or the ritual part of our daily life. And svadhyaya, if you're all students of yoga or interested in studying Yoga Sutra, even Yoga Sutras can be chanted, correct? So that becomes an aspect of svadhyaya. Yoga Sutra, even Saundarya Lahari, although it can be a wonderful ritual, it is filled with, it comes from Shaktaya Tantra. Tantra has a very different understand. It has come to be just reduced to some sensual pleasures. It is not so. It has many different facets to it, and it is a beautiful way of practice as well. So even those leading to Advaita Vedanta. So Hatha Yoga comes from Tantra. Tantra ultimately kind of conforms to Advaita, And so does Saundarya Lahari and other things. So when we study these texts, we will get to know all of them can be a part of Swadhyaya as well. Yeah, a text that we study. Bhagavad Gita can be chanted. It can be for Swadhyaya. If you are attending these discourses, sometimes what happens is we have developed a kind of resistance to reading the Sanskrit verses. We go straight to the commentary, isn't it? Because either it's too tricky, too much to read, it feels like a tongue twister, and we kind of resist reading the sutras or even the Hatha Yoga scriptures. You might know the entire content of Hatha Pradipika, but not have even read the sutras, the shlokas completely. So it is important that we inculcate this chanting so that it makes it easier. And then it becomes more relatable. You can understand the meaning with respect to the sutra itself, right? And chanting in yoga class. What does it mean when we say chanting in yoga class? Especially right now, in order to make yoga neutral, acceptable by everybody, chanting has been eliminated from a lot of yoga classes, right? But the importance of that is upon, people come from different backgrounds. We don't know what they might have gone through. In order to simply settle into that yoga class, when we chant a few omkaras or start even with Sahanavavatu, it has no religious implication there at all. In fact, it is not imposing one's deity upon the other, but Sahanavavatu, Sahano Bhunattu. We all know the meaning. May we both be nourished, may we both be protected, may we walk the path where there is light, may we not have any kind of misunderstandings. To simply translate it in simple terms, what is so wrong in chanting that, right? And of course, this is a personal practice and not necessarily be imposed upon people. So it brings about certain kind of a mindset before we start our practice. So it is important to start a prayer, start with the prayer when we open the class. And we also have Surya Namaskara mantras. Don't we all need Surya? Don't we all need? There are just different names of Surya, and Surya is called as Aditya, the son of Aditi, Mitra, a friend to all. Yeah, so Om Hram Mitraya Namaha, Om Hrim Ravaye Namaha. So there are different Suryaya Namaha, Hiranyagarbhaya Namaha. There are different names of Suryas that is invoked while performing the Surya Namaskara, the 12 different names. So it is definitely can be incorporated into our practice. What happens then? Every time you chant that, your mind is directed. You are aware of the name you're calling out. That means simply instead of mechanically doing the practice, you're aware in the mind, you're binding the mind to a very specific practice. Of course, your breath is always going with the flow of the body, and it's all in very beautiful cohesion, I can say. Similarly, there are Chandra Namaskara mantras too. Very rarely used, but they do exist. And chanting before pranayama or during pranayama. So there are certain schools of practice in pranayama where they actually chant the mantra while doing the kumbhaka. During inhalation, if, for example, if you're doing nadi shodhana, during inhalation there is a mantra that is chanted. During retention there is mantra chanted. Again, during exhalation there's mantra chanted. In fact, those who also do Sandhya Vandana might know this, who are initiated. That you chant the Om Bhuhu Om Bhuvaha, the Gayatri mantra is also done using the pranayama. So that is, of course, those who are initiated can do that. Otherwise, we can chant Om, right? That means, see how beautifully you are consciously controlling and directing the mind to whatever you want the focus to be. It is not simply, I've seen in pranayama classes that people sometimes are just waiting to finish off those 10 counts of Nadi Shodhana. You just want to be done. Because it's like sitting here, the hand is kind of, shoulder is hurting, the hand starts to hurt after a while. You just want to be done. So it's like, tuck, 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 so quickly we finish it off. But do it mindfully. So you, instead of thinking about something, what am I going to do after the class? Okay, what count is this? Now I missed the count as well. So instead of all those complications, sometimes we just apply the mantra and allow the mind to settle into the practice. Do with complete awareness, not simply because you have to do. So in our tradition, our guru always says, don't do any japa or don't do any practice to fulfill a certain number. because your mind is constantly, it's like, how many more left? I'm just at 50. Oh my god, I have to do 54 more, or 54 I've done, like 108 if you've taken that. So going into the next part of japa should never be rushed through. If we have developed the ability to sit and sustain that focus on just that one mantra, only then we should set a number, or not set a number at all. He would say, if you can simply keep your mind with that one mantra, just do it. Even if it is 10 times, do it with complete absorption into that mantra. It is enough. And there are a few people who say that I set an alarm when I sit for japa. That also won't work. If mind is such a wonderful thing, sometimes it allows you to settle into the practice, sometimes it doesn't happen. One day you can have a beautiful japa meditation, the second day it's already craving the same feeling. So do not give any of that kind of food to the mind. Let it be. Acceptance that today I may not be able to sit for long, but let me still sit for however long I can is okay. First of all, for those who are not completely aware of what japa is repetition of the same mantra over and over again. We do not change the mantra of japa, and the priority goes to the diksha. If you have received a guru diksha, that mantra, all right? If you have received a mantra through a guru as an initiation, that will be the priority. If you haven't, then it will be your ishta devata, because it is important to connect to the deity. It is not simply reciting a random word, right? That mantra has so much potential within it, that you connect with it with every aspect of that deity. Even if it is Om Namah Shivaya, you are dwelling in that Shiva, in that aspect of Shiva, or the personality. We all know different characteristics and personalities of these deities. That is why it is important to develop that ability to connect with the deity. Otherwise, it is simply utterance of some words. You might as well be chanting table and chair. You know what I mean? Because it will not have any impact on the mind. It will not sustain your attention. You will not be able to connect with it. So first will be, if you have received the Diksha mantra, then that will take the priority, and then followed by Ishta Devata mantra. Some of us don't even know what is the Ishta Devata yet. Then it can be Kula Devata, because I'm sure we all have some kind of background in this, right? Our families must have worshipped a deity. We all have Kula Devata, mostly. Maybe some of us would have forgotten if we haven't continued the practice. But we know it's like, oh, in our household, we pray to Shiva or Krishna or Rama or somebody. All of these names and forms. See, one thing about our practice, time and again our gurus have said that the truth is just one. There can't be many truths. But we dwell in the world of names and forms, and we pick that name and form that is closest to us, that kind of makes an impact on us, on our everyday life, on our personality, because we can connect with that. um, Therefore we pick and choose. It could be Shakti, it could be Devi in different forms. There is Devis in Saumya Swarupa, that is in a very Madhura, sweet form, and there is also in Ugra Swarupa with the tongue out and very fierce form, and people can connect to that. There is complete surrender to that aspect of the Shakti. So it is important to have that connect, and then we pick and choose the japa. Now, japa initially, normally, is done slightly loudly, right? We utter the words. But ideally, japa is purely manasika in nature. It is only mental recitation, not even the tongue moves inside. The ultimate practice of japa. And it says it must lead to a japa. So we will discuss all of these things in a little more detail at another point in time. But this is another aspect that can be introduced into your own yoga practice. Right? Now, after having practiced all these asanas, we know the definition of asana by now. Sthiram Sukham Asanam. Ultimately, you don't need to stand upside down, right? You don't need to be in a scorpion pose. You must be able to sit upright so that you don't feel those pins and needles in your legs, so that your foundation of the posture, the base of the posture is absolutely stable. Your spine is not aching, your back is not aching, so that you keep shifting. And once all of that is taken care of, then you bring your awareness to the breath, and then you start training the mind. Why can't we do japa until then? If your body is not comfortable, how can the mind be in something else? It definitely is important that you're comfortable first. Can you sit on the chair and do the japa? Yes, as long as you don't fall asleep. Right? So it is important that the body is comfortable and stable, and it is basically freeing the mind from every other distraction. Yeah, so that now I can introduce that beautiful word or a phrase or a longer sentence, so that it can just dwell in that thought. That is the idea of japa. Now, closing prayer. See, opening and closing prayers are important because it sets a tone for the practice. You do this yourself, experiment it, okay? When you start your asana practice, when you roll the mat out, if you just start straight off with a few warm-ups and start your surya namaskara and then going to the postures and just lie down in shavasana and then get up, and a lot of them don't even like lying down in shavasana, right? Some really love shavasana and some don't at all. On the other hand, it's like, oh, I feel lethargic after that, so I might as well get up and get on with work. But introduce the opening and closing prayer and see how your practice changes, right? Do it yourself. Try it, and then you will know how it actually makes a huge impact on the practice. There is some kind of a tone that is set when we start with mantra and when we close with mantra. And also pay attention to your voice range and the tonality of opening and closing. Opening, especially when we do a group practice, it is always in a good energy level, but towards the end it is not tired energy but a calmer energy. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha. It has something, it has a calming effect. And then when you get up and just go on with the rest of the day, you know that there is some semblance of grounding, there is peace, there is calmness that you have actually imbibed from that practice. That is important. Your sadhana should seep into the rest of the day, right? It should allow you to think clearly, feel more relaxed, and all that, right? Okay, moving forward. Now, it is absolutely important that we understand the mantras and these chants are in Sanskritam. So it becomes very important to understand Sanskrit. You all know what Sanskritam is, so I'm not going to read out every aspect of it. I already said that it is Vaidika and then Samanya Samskrita. It is also known as the Deva Bhasha. The word Sanskritam itself means Samyak Kritam, that which is perfectly done, that which is already, it's a very well thought of, it is very systematic. Therefore, also coming from tech background, those who are coders, they say that, Sanskrit is used in all. I'm not from computer background, so I do not know that it is in binary, right? They understand it better, they say. So the importance here is, if we do not understand the language, if we always have, see, we all have regional influence, right? Regional language influence when we chant. Our pronunciations are more regional. If I'm a Kannada speaker, I have more influence on my chanting. If we are Hindi speakers or Bengali speakers, we will have that influence. So it is important to kind of iron out all of those so that we simply focus on the language in which it is written. Because our Vedas are in Samskrita. Most of these texts that we have mentioned here, Yoga Sutra or Bhagavad Gita, also in Samskrita. So it is important to understand the correct pronunciation so that we do not change the meaning. And not only that, we also saw how important it is to maintain that Varna, Swara, Matra, Balam, Sama, Santana, right? And those rules are coming from Sanskritam. Therefore, we have to apply it to our chanting as well. So we will go through all of these at a later point, perhaps, because there's a lot of confusion, and there are a few people who do not read the Devanagari script. There's a lot of confusion amongst Hindi and Sanskrita speakers, because the script is the same. The language is different. The language may be based on Sanskritam, but the script is the same, the Devanagari script. So sometimes the pronunciations, there's quite a bit of debate, why do South Indians end with the a, but it ends shorter, pranayam, dhyan, yog, things like that. It is perfectly correct if you are saying it in Hindi, but Sanskrita has its own pronunciation, and we will have to pay a little attention to that. So this is something called as transliteration. For those who do not know Devanagari script, can use this. We will look at it at a later point, perhaps. Some pronunciations that we need to, I'll just give example of. In the north, perhaps they say kumkum, but in the south, we normally say kumkuma, right? Kumkuma. We use the makara, kum. But according to the rule of this nasal sound and Vargiya Vyanjana rule, it is kunkuma, like ink, pink, right? Kunkuma. Ashtanga. We know the Ashtanga yoga. We say Ashtanga, right? The Shakara, there are two different types of Shakaras. One is a Sha, as in, ship, fish, those things, sharp, that. The other one is Sha, rolled Sha. It is retroflex, that is, tongue is rolled in to touch the upper palate. Sha. So in Ashtanga, or even Krishna, Vishnu, it is the rolled Shakara, Murdhanya Shakara it's called. And normally what we use is the Talavya, Sha. Yeah. Chanchala, some Sanskrit words, I'm sure you know all this. Anjana, Kantha, Dandasana. Normally, even Dandasana, we use it as Danda. It's like a na is touching the teeth. It is actually the rolled one, Dandasana. Nda. Like how we say anda. It's not anda, right? The egg. It's anda. That way, Dandasana, Nakara. Because Tatha, Dadha, Na. It comes in that category. It is Vargiya Vyanjana. So the rule is, whenever there is an Anuswara in conjunction with a Vargiya Vyanjana, you have to use the nasal sound of that Varga. For example, here. These are Vargiya Vyanjanas, correct? The last sound, nga, nya, na, ma. They come in conjunction with its own group. We will look into this later. Now, so Antara, Chandana, Pampa, Ambuja, certain words in conjunction with that particular group is what I have given here example as. Now, we know these, this comes from Vishnu Sahasranama, most of you know this. Normally what we do when we chant this, Jagat Prabhum Deva Devam, we say, right? It is Jagat Prabhun Deva, Nakara. So although there is a M here, Anuswara, because it is followed by the nasal sound of the is tatha, dadha, na. So this Anuswara becomes na. Okay, na, the soft one. Jagat Prabhun Deva Deva Manantam Purushottamam. Yeah. Vishnum, Jishnum, Mahavishnum. So we normally chant that way, Vishnum, Jishnum, but it becomes Vishnun, Jishnum. Nj, like Anjana. We have Anjana here, Nj. Yeah. Vishnun, Jishnum, Mahavishnum. Jishnum, Maha is the same because we already have a Ma there, right? It is a Vargiya Vyanjana and Ma is already there. So it's the same sound that is doubled. Yogo Yoga Vidam Neta will become Yogo Yoga Vidan Neta. Nakara comes there. All right, these are the rules that we normally apply in chanting. Now, we already kind of discussed this, the effects of chanting on our mind and body complex. In order to chant, we definitely must have a stable posture because chanting, whether you're doing your personal sadhana as japa, or you're chanting the Yoga Sutra or the Gita as svadhyaya, or incorporating it as a practice in your yoga class, it is important that you sit in an upright posture. The spine is upright, and we know that asana mastery is required to sit comfortably that way. Whether you sit in Sukhasana, Padmasana, Ardha Padma, doesn't matter, but the stable posture is important. And on the other hand, chanting like this also helps in building a stable posture. So it goes hand in hand that way. It works both ways. Now, we know that it, there are a few examples that I have put on the slides. So we will talk about how we control breath. Controlling the breath is a very important aspect. And through Hatha Yoga text, we know wherever it is like Chale Vate Chalam Chittam Nischale Nischalam Bhavet. That is in the second chapter of Hatha Pradipika. Swatmarama says that, if your breath is erratic, the mind is also fluctuating. But when you have your breath under control, mind is also slowly coming under control. They use the word vata there, chale vate chalam chittam. So we know that, and not just that. Later on in the second line, it says yogi sthanupyan mapnoti. So he builds that ability to be in a stable posture by controlling one's vayu. That means that is kind of leading to kumbhaka there. But here, even without the kumbhaka, we know that when we are angry, our breath is short and rapid, right? It is because the mind is fluctuating so much. It's like so many thought modifications that are rising and falling. But it works both ways. Mind has an effect on the breath, and breath has effect on the mind. We cannot control the mind directly. So that's the reason we, especially after being introduced to yoga, we do this, right? When we are really, okay, I'm going to calm down now, and then we will see, right? We take a couple of deep breaths, and it's like, all right, let me respond to this and not react to this. So something like that, even how it affects the mind. Chanting is a beautiful practice for that. Now, not just that. In fact, I personally got hooked to chanting initially when I started about 7, 8 years ago, was because I knew when I got angry, I couldn't sit in meditation or do japa. It won't work because mind is running like a horse in a different direction. But even if you mutter a few things, or if you just sit down, right now what I do is when I'm having that lack of focus, I just take out a book and I start chanting. So it is initially the mind is resisting to switch from that crazy thought process to this, but that is how we train too, right? So we bring that focus. It is not possible to breathe deep and just, it's like, no, I'm going to be calm, or it's not possible to go into meditation or dharana practice. But that is where I kind of found this tool of chanting to help me control my own mind. So, and it is of course a beautiful practice that we see that done over an extended period of time, it helps build that ekagrata. Ekagra chitta we call it. It's like one pointed mind, beautiful. So when we do these long parayanas for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, or 2 hours, that towards the end of it, you just close the book and you just sit. Because one is, of course, that wonderful energy surge throughout the body, this because we're continuously breathing in that systematic way. Mind is focused, just one pointed for that extended period of time, and you just want to just be there. Just be. There are no more thoughts even coming. Maybe a couple of words from what you have chanted goes over and over again, but nothing else, right? So that is one beautiful way to train the mind. And we know through yoga therapy that what happens when you do all of this, because your body is in a state of calm and relaxation or focus, that you're no more anxious. The parasympathetic nervous system is active, and that is how it helps in maintaining that state of mind. Now, what are the other chants that we can do, which are not particularly coming from Veda, right? Namah Shivaya, all that is coming from the Veda, but other chants that we can incorporate is Ramanama Japa. We know that. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, and Hanuman Chalisa, many things. I mean, I've just named a few here that are most commonly used. Like I said, if you have not received the Diksha, if you do not know what is your Ishta Devata, these are some of the chants that we can choose from. And sometimes, although let's say you have picked Om Namah Shivaya and you're not able to connect with it, you do it for an extended period of time and still unable to connect with it, you can perhaps change them. Whatever really works for you, whatever is the connection in your heart, that is what you must do. All right. Starting from Sahana Vavatu. We all know this, but can somebody help me out with this? You can unmute yourself, or Manjunath ji, you yourself can do it.
I think we'll give the opportunity for someone. You may raise your hand in the reactions and I'll unmute you. Anyone who wants to volunteer to chant this, and of course, it'll be a good correction and learning process as well. Or I'll pick randomly from the crowd. Nandini wants to.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you can unmute Nandini.
Namaste, Nandini.
Namaste.
So have you chanted this before? I'm sure yes.
Yes, I have.
Yes, please go ahead and chant.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनामधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Okay, thank you. So, if you notice, what did you start with? Sahana bhavatu. That is the most common mistake. Okay, because the meaning is something as Sahana bhavatu would mean there is Sahana, but this Sahana bhavatu, right? So, one is meaning changes. See, I'm just going to give feedback so that we learn from this. Now, Sahana Bhavatu. No, the note was something else. Can you chant just the first part again, please? Now, I just want to point out the notes, how you do it. Nandini, can you chant just the first part one more time, just the first line?
ॐ सहना भवतु.
Sahana Bhavatu. Okay, thank you. So, this is what I was trying to say, something called as Vedic Swaras, right? You see, there is a horizontal line here and there is a vertical line on top here. They all have names, just so you know, we know how to address them. Then this horizontal line below is called as Anudatta. And there are certain letters which have no symbols like that, right? No markings. They are called as Udatta. And the vertical line on top is called as Svarita. And there is one more. So basically, we use these three notes. And in the last part, Vidvishavahai, there are two vertical lines. That is basically that is called as Dirgha Svarita. It is an extension of Svarita. No extra note is coming there, as in the musical note or the Vedic note. But we normally go only between these. For example, Om. If Om is my Udatta, all the unmarked sounds that you see, ha, Om, sa, sa, after sa there is ha, right? That's the ha I'm saying. Vavatu, Om, ha, vavatu, vavatu, Om. All should fall in the same line. Yeah. So when we chant, Om Sahana Vavatu, I'm doing it very slowly. Sahanau Bhunaktu Bhunaktu. Normally we have a tune there. Bhunaktu. That would mean Bhunaktu. There is a note for the Bhu if we did that. But it is Bhunaktu Bhunaktu flat in the same line. Sahaviryam Sahaviryam. V is two matra kala, followed by ya, which has a refa, correct? That ardha rakara. Yeah. Now there is a rule that whenever there is a dirgha swara followed by a sanyukta, a conjunction, you need to drag it a little bit more to make it very clearly heard. It's not just sahaviryam, sahaviryam. V is going down, yang going up, right? Sahaviryam. And I'm not doing viryam, viryang. Because the nasal sound of kavarga. Now this anuswara, this dot at viryam is followed by ka. What is the nasal sound of kavarga? Ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, nga, kunkuma, unk, Therefore, I will use that Sahaviryam karavavahai kara. Yeah, that one. Karavavahai, same line again. No notes there, right? Karavavahai. I've heard many different tunes. It happens. I mean, that is what we are learning here, correct? Now, the next one. This is slightly longer. A lot of them break this line in half. Normally, we do not break it wherever we want, because you see the full stop right at the end. Vidvishavahai is where the full stop is, the vertical lines. In order to learn, we can break it. But once we learn, we should entirely say it, which you did correctly. तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Now, I mentioned there are different sampradayas, the traditions, which chant slightly differently, correct? Vidvishavahai is our Mysore Sampradaya. There is actually another tradition in Karnataka itself, in Gokarna, in which tradition I studied for a short period of time. They do not separate it. Hai e, they don't do hai e, they do, right? So these are the nuances that we will learn, whether it is a mistake or a tradition. That is something that we normally get to know when we study this. तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. See, there is tihi. Now, the rule here is Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. 3 times we have Shanti. Each of them followed by a visarga, correct? There is a visarga at the end. The 2 dots that you see, we call it as visarga. The rule is when visarga is followed by sha or sa, but for now it is sha, right? Shanti. It disappears and in its place another shakara comes, or it becomes a shakara itself, right? So I do not say shanti, hi shanti, hi shanti, hi. I say shantish, which you said correctly. Shantish, shantish. See, for the 2, I did shantish, shantish. Only the last one will have the visarga fully. Shantihi. Om Shantish, Shantish, Shantihi. And the tihi is going up as well, right? It's in Svarita. So these are the small things we kind of pay attention to in the Veda chanting. Now, very common prayer again. A lot of people know this, and also a lot of mistakes made. Beginning with the first word, we normally chant it as Guru Brahma, isn't it? You must have heard of this, right? Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. But the words are Guruhu Brahma, Guruhu Vishnu, Vishnuhu, Guruhu Devo, right? And because of the Sandhi rule, the grammar rule, it becomes Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnur, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Okay, in one entire line, if we're continuing. If we are breaking it at Vishnu, then we have to end it as Vishnuhu. For example, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnuhu. If I'm pausing there, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Or if I'm doing the entire line, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Guru Sakshat, Guruhu Sakshat is written, but normally say we just say Guru Sakshat. That makes no sense because it is Guruhu Sakshat. The rule is Visarga followed by Sakara, just like Shanti. Here it was Shakara, here it is Sakara. It becomes Gurus. And the Visarga is doubled as S, right? Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai. Normally we drag this as Parabrahma. Now, the first one was Brahma, ending in 2 matra, because when they, in the first line, they're talking about Guru is none other than that creator Brahma, is none other than Vishnu, none other than Maheshwara himself. But in the next line, when they say Parabrahma, it is that Brahman of Vedanta that is talked about. Therefore, we do not drag it as Brahma. We just say Parabrahma in 1 matra. Okay? See the smallest of things, how it changes the meaning. So that is why it is important to pay attention to matra kala. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Another common mistake to say Guruve Namaha. Have you all heard that? It is not Guruve Namaha. According to the Vibhakti itself, it is Gurave. When we do Guru Shabda, it is Gurave. To that Guru, I offer my Namaskara. That's why it is Gurave Namaha. So these common prayers like this, I mean, I think we should know the correct way of chanting these. The most basic of prayers, I think we have all heard it, learned it ever since we were probably 3 or 4 years old or 5 years old, right? We have, so these are the small things we must definitely correct. And This is not normally made so many mistakes in, but I'll just chant this. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvighnam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. So you see me dragging a few words a little bit, isn't it? Sarvakaryeshu Karyeshu went to two matra, a little longer than two matra because of the conjunction here, R and Y. Yeah. So these little rules we will discuss in some chanting class somewhere. Another most commonly chanted prayer. Shuklam, yeah, I already gave this example. It's not Shuklam, it's Shuklam. We emphasize the first letter in the conjunction, in the Sanyukta Akshara. Conjunctions means the Sanyukta. When two consonants come together along with the vowel or without the vowel, we call it as Sanyukta, right? Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnan Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye. So in our Mysore tradition, we enunciate these little things. All the things you see in the bracket, these are the changes that come about when we chant. So Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum. When Anuswara is followed by Ya, Va and La, there is a nasal sound of the same category. Here it is Anuswara, that is followed by Va, will become not it will be difficult to transition. See, the beauty of Sanskritam is all of this is made, these nuances are to easily transition from one sound to another. If I had to do Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum, because in Sanskrit we don't have a W kara, W sound is not there, we don't have W. Although people use it like Swami or Swadhyaya, we only have a V, Va, Ya, Ra, La, Va, Va. That is the teeth, upper teeth touching the lower lip. Okay, Va, Vishnu, Svadhyaya, Swami. Although kind of V and W are used interchangingly, perhaps the reason that most of us, when we speak in a very typical Indian accent, we have that heavy V coming. What are you doing? I want some water. V, yeah? Because W does not exist in our alphabet, right? So it is we must get used to using the V with our languages now. Now, Baradharami is easy to pronounce than Baradharam V, because I'm closing the mouth to do and then I have to transition to V. It's tough. Shuklam Baradharam Vishnu. It's tough, right? Too much transition. So when you do the nasalization of V, Shuklam Baradharam Vishnu, see, fewer movements of the lips and the mouth. Yeah. And Chaturbhujam we know. Shashi Varnancha Cha 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 janya. Yeah, munch. Actually, this exists even in English. We don't have a very defined sound of nasalized sound. Munch, bunch, crunch, branch, right? Although N sound is na there, it becomes because of the following word, the letter, the other letter which is coming after the nasalization is cha. So we use the grouped words. We have the groups for that. See, samyak kritam, isn't it? Prasanna vadanam dhyayet. Vadanam dhyayet will be vadanam dhyayet. Same category. Tata dadha na. That's why. Now, dhyayet sarva. Even if you do it very slowly, dhyayet sarva, there is a there's a little bit of an aspiration that is heard. So we say that. We have given it a place there in the chanting. Dhyayet sarva vignopashantaye. Dhyayet sarva, that's that sound that's coming, that is used in chanting. All right. So anyway, many prayers like this. I'm going to quickly move to Yoga Sutra. Now you see, the last line here is the sutra. Sutras are normally like this. No breaks sometimes. Now how do I know? I've taken this example because I have seen a teacher split this wrongly. Shraddha. The minute you say Shraddha, we know that A plus A is A, right? In our Sandhi rule. What will happen to Virya? Avirya. That did change the meaning. Shraddha. Because she said Shraddha, not Shraddha. Virya. Are you following me? I hope you got that just right. It will become avirya if you break it wrongly. Therefore, breaking these words correctly, perfectly, is absolutely important. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti. See, when I say Virya, I did not say Virya. There is no two matra of A. Shraddha, ending two matra. Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvakah, Itaresham. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Itaresham. Now it is easy to say the sutra. So also breaking it correctly helps in associating with the word. And most of our Indic languages seem the same, isn't it? We can easily understand it better. Now, if this was not broken, our favorite 30th sutra, it's a favorite for all the chanting students. So it is so long and there's no break in between. Yes, Manjanaji.
There are a bunch of yoga teachers also in this forum.
Oh, wonderful.
It's wonderful if they can attempt this and the previous one as well.
Oh, good. If anybody wants to try the sutra, please go ahead.
Yeah, you can raise your hand if you wish to. Digital hand, that is. Okay, we can go ahead. Thanks.
All right. Now, it's so long, sometimes again, the same confusion. Where do we break it? What if I'm breaking it wrongly? It will give completely different meaning. Therefore, we do the breaking chanting first. Vyadhi, Sthana, Samshaya, Pramada, Alasya, Avirati, Bhranti Darshana, Alabdha Bhumikatva, Anavasthitatvani, Chitta Vikshepaha, Te Antarayaha. Now, our pranayama comes into play here. Deeper breath. Vyadhisthana samshaya pramadalasya virati bhranti darshana labdha bhumikatvana avasthitatvani chitta vikshepastentarayaha. Yes. So that is how we learn to control our breath and chant the entire thing. You know, this is nothing. As we go to Veda chanting, some of the anuvakas in Rudram you'll know. Where is it ending? Then it is no way but to actually either say it really fast or to take a breath in between. But that is a training again. There is my teacher who can actually say the entire Anuvaka in one breath and also with a lot of speed. So all of this is something, see, chanting is helping unknowingly working on so many aspects, isn't it? Like one is focus. I mean, whoever is really into this right now and paying attention, can you imagine that we've passed 60 minutes? Time is flying and your focus is right here and there is so much to absorb, so much. That is how that attention span increases. We are working on extending that attention span. Otherwise, because of our Instagram reels, how many seconds has it reduced to? Tan, 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 go, keep going, swipe, swipe. 30 seconds, 40 seconds. So we are like working on reducing our attention span. Here we are expanding our attention span. And so many rules we have to keep it in memory. That is how we are going to apply it, you know, visual working memory, verbal working memory, and how it is beautifully all coming into one, one practice. That is how chanting helps. So this is okay. We will do all of these things another time because I know I've taken up the time of Q&A as well. So I'll open the floor for Q&A now. So if you have any questions, let's go for it, Manjunath ji. I hope it's okay because we will address the things later because again, if I start going into the nuances, it's one is information overload. They'll probably be afraid of chanting now or of course or they would really love to chant, so I don't want to confuse them anymore. Please go ahead.
Sindhoora, you want to do the Shantri Mantra now and then keep the Q&A a little...
Sure. All right, let's do that. Sure. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Shri Gurubhyo Namah.
Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Thank you. So maybe you can unshare the slides. Yeah. So if you have a question, either you can raise your digital hand or you can post your question in the chat, either ways. So What we'll do, probably we'll keep it for about 10, 15, 20 minutes based on the number of questions. I have some questions as well, for
Okay.
myself and for others.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so Shubhaji, thanks for the comment. If you have any questions, please post in the chat. Otherwise, I'll go with my questions first. Okay, feel free to raise your hand. So few questions in the Raji. One is, yes, if somebody is new to chanting and they have heard for the last 70, 80 minutes, it might feel overwhelming for most. Right? Oh, there is so much. The landscape itself is so vast. So how do we start? Where to start? And in such a way that I don't feel overwhelmed, but make a start, sustain it, and grow my deeper interest in it. How to start for a beginner?
All right. So this is something that is very close to my heart, chanting. Like I said, how chanting really impacted my life. I have shared with Manjunathji why I am so into it right now. And now it's kind of the purpose to also perpetuate this because, we also come from that tradition. Now, coming straight to that question of where to start, a lot of Veda chanting courses are available, and many teachers are sharing now. But understanding what tradition, I said that tradition and error must be understood. So we will have to go as per paramparas or sampradayas, depending on where you all are, where you are located. You can definitely go and understand, who teaches what they teach and understand that. Or from my side, initially, in order to there is a set of daily prayers which is introduced as a foundation course, so that you kind of develop that prayerful attitude throughout the day. For example, in this foundation course, I introduce these. I'm sure you all know this. Karagre vasate Lakshmi, Karamadhye Saraswati, Karamule tu Govindah Prabhate Karadarshanam. This is a prayer that is chanted upon waking up, right? And there is a prayer even before we step down from our bed. Samudravasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Padasparsham Kshamasvame. And while lighting the lamp, we have a prayer. And we have a set of prayers for that, depending on the idols or pictures that you have or the deity that you connect with. And before bhojana, before eating, we have prayers. Before going to bed, we have prayers. Our life can be made fully prayerful, but just by using these. So what I do is I offer something called as a foundation course, which has all these chants in it, through which the rules will be introduced. Maybe we will not come across all the rules that exist in the chanting tradition just within these prayers. But what if a person is not interested in these prayers? What if they want to do more of an intellectual process? For that, I also do Yoga Sutra chanting, because most of us understand yogic philosophy and we know that Yoga Sutra chanting also helps. So basically, the introduction to the rules of chanting as per our tradition and as per the Sanskrit rules can be introduced in two ways, which I have been doing for the last 4 years. Either through this set of prayers, which is wonderful to apply. That means you are aware of everything that you're doing right from the moment you wake up. There is already that focus, and I, of course, share the meaning of it. And my guru always says there is padartha, that is the pada, every word has an artha, and there is a bhavartha. There is a deeper meaning to everything. So we need to understand and connect to that. Then it will perhaps make sense why we do what we do. Yeah. One is that approach, understanding it through daily prayers, and then slowly taking it to Yoga Sutra or Bhagavad Gita or Stotra chanting. Yeah. Veda chanting definitely comes much later. Because even Vishnu Sahasranama, Lalita Sahasranama, although you have already learned, if we have to reapply the rules, probably unlearn and relearn is going to take some time. And those rules need to really settle in before we go to Veda, because we have a new layer of challenge there, that is the swaras, right? Again, unlearning and relearning at the swara level. So that is how we approach this.
Thank you. Next question, as the questions keep rolling in, I'll pick from Zoom as well. Next question, what if one wants to do just Nama Japa and nothing else?
Okay, for that, I would ask if that person has actually come to a state where stable posture has been accomplished, breath awareness has been accomplished, awareness, I'm not saying, masters of Kumbhaka, and then connection to that deity, definitely possible. Anybody can do japa. And like I said, there are different layers to japa as well. And all of that can be introduced. And I think it must be. Personally, yes, japa is a type of dhyana, right? Especially when it goes to ajapa japa, it is definitely a dhyana, right? So yes, anybody can practice, but even that has to be correctly introduced. And I am no guru. I'm just a student in this particular tradition. I'm sharing the rules and whatever that I study with my gurus. And I cannot give you japa mantra. That I can openly tell you. If you already know a japa mantra, or a few common japa mantras can be introduced, like Mahamrityunjaya mantra. I do not teach Gayatri mantra. It is just either Mahamrityunjaya mantra or Ramanama japa, and these few common japas, Vasudevaya or Narayanaya, Om Namah Shivaya, those can be introduced. And yes, otherwise, at least the techniques and all the insights that is required to do the japa can be shared. Yes.
Okay. So what I gather based on what you presented in these answers, I'm speaking for myself. I start with the prayers journey to begin with. So do we get the pronunciations right? And the padartha and bhavartha also blends into that. And then perhaps after a period of maybe few weeks, few months, we don't know how long, then that can be an organic journey. Then step into Nama Japa, of course, either start Ishta Devata Nama Japa, and we can probably keep doing this in parallel. So I do, for example, any Om Namah Shivaya, Rama Nama Japa in parallel, and maybe what we're learning in the prayers rubs off positively into Nama Japa as well.
Correct. Yes, that's right. Absolutely. So you get introduced to the correct pronunciations. As you learn something simultaneously, you can apply it to your practice as well. Absolutely, that's possible. Yes.
I'll pick a couple of questions from the chat.
Sure.
Shubhaji is asking, this is very specific about Om. Could you please help me understand the difference between OHM, I think she means OUM, or AUM, and Om. Also,
Okay.
I'd like to know how to chant this correctly, how to chant Om correctly.
Okay. So first of all, I see that it seems like chanting is difficult. That's how it's coming off. Oh, that's the previous one. Okay. So Omkara. When we use it in chanting, as in Veda chanting, we do not split it, because Om is a bija mantra and it is the primordial sound, right? The Om practice has come in some traditions because of its use, how it is applied. For example, if you have done this Nada Anusandhana practice that is taught in Isvyasa, we do that first, we do because the place of resonance for all of this is different. Yeah. That is, when we do simply akara, it resonates in the abdominal cavity. Ukara resonates in the thoracic cavity. The makara resonates in the cranial cavity, because these are the only three cavities that exist in our body, isn't it? Yeah. So that is why, in order to have a very different kind of an impact on the body, is why that kind of practice is used. Even in Hatha texts, Nada Anusandhana practice is a little different, but we don't split Omkara for our purpose of chanting. We only always do Om. And there are practices, just to tell you how it works. There are a few teaching traditions where they use 25%, Oo 25%, Makara 25%, and silence 25%, to call that they do. And there is a practice that do akara ukara as 25%, makara longer 50%, dragging, right? So all of these traditions, definitely it is important to understand the reason behind why they do what they do. But for the purpose of chanting, we never break it. That is as clear as it can be. All right. Omkara. It's always Om. So if you are doing that practice in any of these traditions and you have received it that way, there is no need for any understanding or clashes in understanding. You can continue to do it if it works for you. maybe it's for a particular purpose. But as soon as we come for our Veda chanting or any of these chanting, it's Om. Okay, we don't break it. All right. Next question.
Next one is an expression. Kaminiji says, thank you so much for the session. I thought chanting and japa is easy and I can chant in my language, but seems I need to learn how to pronounce correctly, especially Sanskrit words. For me, only Om is simple. Need to put a lot of efforts, even to start with the Yoga Sutras. So yeah. And can we have sessions to practice japa in the upcoming sessions? We'll speak about it in a moment, Kaminiji. So if there are no more questions, okay. Jyotiji sent me a DM saying, how many times should japa be done since each mantra has different potency? Yeah, you want to quickly address that, Sindhoraji?
Okay. All right. So, like I mentioned, number of times in certain traditions, the numbers matter because uh, understand their perspective behind it. If you have to do 1,008 times every day, it's because they are telling you train your mind, push your mind to do at least that much. Okay. But we are of that understanding in our tradition. If you're constantly, fidgety and you want to get up and go do something else, or you have too much in your mind, that kind of japa does not impact the mind, right? Therefore, in our tradition, we say numbers are not important, rather the bhava and the intensity of japa and the concentrated mind when you are doing the japa is more important. And of course, the numbers have a lot of significance, right, in our tradition. So it is like either 9 or 11, and some do 21, some do 54, 108, 1008, lakh 8, all of that, or 3 japamalas, 2 japamalas, they all do those things. I don't think I'm not into any of those, so I don't know what to say about the numbers. So go by how much you can do. I also mentioned that there are a few people is like, oh, I set an alarm so that I do for them. So what if you are going into a wonderful state of mind, or the ajapa is beginning, or you're just settling in? Because it's not like the minute you start Om Namah Shivaya, you're there. Sometimes it takes a while to get into that, and the alarm rings then. Right? So this has to be done with a little bit of discernment and understanding what it's actually doing to you and how you want to go about it. So we are not sticklers to numbers, that I can say. See, this is not some like a parayana, I have to finish these many number of times because there is a ritual going, right? This is for personal sadhana. When it comes to sadhana, we have to be subjective. Yeah, it is not possible to just have these hard and fast rules. Sometimes even asana practice are not the same, isn't it? It's not possible. Sometimes the body doesn't feel the same. Although you do the same practice every day, there is tightness somewhere, some new thing has started, some new cramps, or so it doesn't work that way. So we do not impose it for our personal sadhana.
Thank you. So Jyotiji, hope that answers your question. So summary is, let's start with bhavartha and then let that organically unfold into either a number of minutes in terms of duration or number of counts if you wish to go for it. Thank you. So before we conclude, couple of expressions. One, I for one personally would have liked to go in person and meet Sindhoora in Mysore itself, because taking advantage of the co-location and learn. However, considering the group's interest in mind, if some of you are interested in getting started with this journey of learning chanting more systematically, I'm happy to go online first with all of you and then perhaps transition to offline later. So I'll post some questions about this, some survey or a poll or something in the Corporate Seekers Hub WhatsApp group. So you may respond to that, and based on the interest levels, we can proceed further. So I spoke to Sindhoora day before yesterday and found that if we have an online batch of 20 to 25 people, not more than that, so that sufficient attention can be given to individuals while we are doing this collectively in an online mode, which is quite tricky because I happened to sit outside the room when Sindhuraj was taking a class, and I could feel the energies, vibrations from outside itself. And I crave for that experience of energy when the chanting is being done in collective. That's a different thing. However, given that we all are in different locations, we can start online first. So look forward to some communication around this in the coming days. That's one. Second, As the name of the hub that we have, Corporate Seekers Hub, most of us are either corporate employees or self-employed, or people working in startups, or family members of corporate folks. This is the community about in terms of people, kind of people here. And if we speak about Bharata, one of our purposes of this community is to contribute in our own capacity, in our own ways, to a prosperous Bharata, to reinstate our country to the state of golden bird that we were in the past, to reinstate our glory, to understand our true history and legacy. So in this, coming from this bhava, it's our aspiration, and I was happy to know that Sindhoora ji carries a very similar aspiration, that out of 140 crore Bharatiyas, the latest number I checked, about 4 to 5 crore people are corporate workforce in India itself. So it's an aspirational urge that if all the 4 to 5 crore Indians, Bharatiyas in the corporate world can embrace chanting as a way of life in their everyday rituals, I think that will be a great dream to have. So I invite each of you to participate in this yagna of taking chanting, Japa, to the entire corporate world, not only in Bharata, but across the world. I invite you to be part of this journey. Let's start ourselves in our own ways, in our personal sadhanas, and influence chanting, such a divine, such a pure expression of unification with the larger energy, to more and more people. So with this, I'll request you to share any concluding remarks, Sindhoora ji. Then we will perhaps do another round of Shanti Mantra and then conclude. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, wonderfully put. You have covered everything. I don't have much to share. Just that I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity, because when I started studying, our guru always says that, whatever you study must be shared. I am no, what to say, a master in this craft. I'm not. I'm just a student. And all of these teachers have that vision that our practice must perpetuate. Otherwise, just imagine at this age we are getting reintroduced to this, which would have been introduced as soon as a child would speak, pretty much, right? The first things that were uttered were actually the mantras. Isn't that what they did even in our Sharda Pitha, even here? As soon as the child starts speaking, they take them there, and in the grain of rice, they write the letter on the tongue. Our entire practice has been so auspicious. And I think we need to at least understand that. So whatever we're doing is nothing new, which has already been there for thousands of years. Our ancestors have already done it, practiced it. Therefore, we have it available for us today. But the onus is definitely on us to pass it on. If we do not practice this and understand this, that we already have a divinely practice. See, I know we are running out of time, but quickly I would like to share something. Recently, in one of the talks that I heard, that very famous person was making a remark on how this entire, save Earth, save planet thing is coming now in the West, right? That is why everything is like no more vehicles run on fuel, but EVs and all that. But it has a different kind of an impact on the world anyway. But to say that, we already grew up with that mindset. Such a mindset that we don't need to be tree huggers. We already love our rivers. We call her Ma Ganga, Kaveri Mate. We have already addressed Earth as Bhu Devi, yeah, Mother Earth. And that is why in that Samudra Vasane Devi, when we say Padas Parsham Kshamasvame, I'm going to step on you and walk on you through this entire day, Kshamasvame. Just see what is the emotion behind that person if they said that. The connect with Mother Earth. Then when I love something so dearly, can I exploit it? No, naturally I will take care of it. When I talk about Ganga Stotra, Devi Sureshwari Bhagavati Gange, when I'm praising her with all of those Bhagavati, how can I throw anything dirty in that, right? So all this have been already woven into the fabric of our culture, into our practice. That is why I love stotrams more than Veda. Of course, Veda is another level. It takes some time to even get there. But all these stotras will realign us. because we develop that divinely spiritual, prayerful attitude towards everything that we are surrounded with. And that is true living, right? That is true spirituality, not to sit and meditate in a cave or not simply just that. So, another example to say that, sannyasis, one of the Swamijis from Ramakrishna Ashrama recently told me, live life in a rishi ideal. Because rishis were grihasthas. They all did not escape their familiar lives and run away somewhere, right? But they imparted education and they imparted all of this as though it is coming from a family. Because the students lived with Guru and Guru Patni as a family, as children, they took care of them. So that is where we should grow back into, because we have learned to compartmentalize things. And now we are trying to find that common thread. We should break all of that and make this a very cohesive approach towards personal sadhana, peacefulness in the family, and elevation of one's own life spiritually, and then nation building, right? What you quoted in the beginning, absolutely, it was wonderful. So just with that, as it's a reminder, and if I have made any mistakes in sharing, it is definitely my own. I apologize for that if there has been a slip of tongue and anything at all. And everything that I have been able to share here today is absolutely only because of my gurus. So thank you for that. Yeah, with that, we'll just end with Asatoma. We all know that prayer. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Our salutations to the entire lineage of gurus for gifting us this knowledge. Hari Om. Thank you. Thank you, Manjunath ji, for this opportunity. I hope you all enjoyed the session. And let's see how this unfolds. And Manjunath ji will be, I'm sure, coordinating with you regarding this. Thank you. Thank you.
Dhanyavada, Sindhoora ji. Thank you so much. And I've personally taken a sankalpa that this entire 2024, I'm going to lay the foundation for my Japa journey in the life to come. Thank you. Shubha Dinamastu.
Shubha Dinam.